Wignall might call himself a flunky, but even flunkies have dreams, especially when your dream involves surviving a monster-infested dungeon. He's been practicing illusionary magic for years, not that it's earned him any respect. His magic? Not exactly grand magic festival material, no flashy fireworks or jaw-dropping attacks. In fact, it's barely noticeable. His peers? They think he's talentless. But Wignall's got one thing they don't, sheer stubbornness. Sure, his skills don't compare to the high-flying Magia Vandar elites, but he's the last elf left standing at the academy, and that has to count for something, right? Well, maybe. Meanwhile, Will, who's basically the anime version of a motivational poster, refuses to see Wignall as anything less than a top student. Will knows what it's like to be overlooked and underestimated, so the two leftovers bond over their shared goal of surviving this crazy dungeon. But while Will's optimism is as unshakable as ever, Wignall's battling more than just monsters. He's fighting an inferiority complex that could put any emo rock band to shame. Lihana's not feeling much better. She agrees with Wignall's "we're all inferior" sentiment and explains to Colette how some geniuses, like Elfaria, didn't even need to graduate. They just ascended the tower, leaving everyone else to scramble for survival. Lihana knows that no matter how hard she tries, she can't match up to the truly gifted mages. Colette, however, refuses to believe the tower thinks they're total failures. She gives Lihana a pep talk, reminding her that it's not over just because the odds are stacked against them. Back to Wignall, he's still haunted by the memory of his foster sister, Eleanor, a high elf who could conjure entire forests with a single spell. Naturally, she left him in the dust. Ever since she became a Magia Vandar, Wignall has struggled to shake the feeling of being stuck in her shadow, the eternal inferior. And though he might act high and mighty to hide his insecurities, deep down, he's terrified of being the dead weight that drags his team down. Will, however, doesn't see him that way at all. Will is too good for this world and maybe a little naive, but promises to stick with Wignall no matter what, even offering to act as his shield. Wignall's left speechless. Who in their right mind would do that for a flunky? Meanwhile, Colette's pep talk seems to have worked wonders on Lihana. After all, if Will can keep going despite being branded a no talent, then why can't she? Lihana's spirits are lifted, but Will's too busy slicing through monsters like a pro to notice. He's mowing down beasts worth 7 to 9 credits, all while Wignall watches in awe. How is Will still going with that endless stamina? It's almost inhuman. As Will finishes off another batch of monsters, Wignall nervously asks why Will doesn't look down on him like the other elves do. After all, he's been dragging Will down ever since they entered the 11th floor. But for Will, there's no debate. Wignall isn't the nasty elf others think he is, and Will refuses to leave him behind. Just then, a strange heartbeat-like sound fills the air. Will and Kiki immediately tense up, while Wignall tries and fails to locate any monsters. The sound gets louder until suddenly a liquid spills out, birthing a new type of fiery monster. Will's quick to recognize the beast as a Balkar, a monster immune to physical attacks and resistant to magic. It's the kind of enemy that only illusion magic can defeat, but guess who's not feeling up to the challenge? Wignall. Crushed under the weight of his own doubts, he breaks down, convinced his illusion magic will fail. If that happens, they're doomed. Will, ever the optimist, reminds Wignall that failure is part of learning. Neither of them are geniuses, and that's okay. The important thing is to try, even if they fail. But Wignall is terrified. What if his failure gets Will killed? As Will engages the Balkar, Wignall desperately tries to cast his magic, but fails again. His moment of panic nearly costs Will his life, but Kiki saves the day with a well-timed shield spell. Will encourages Wignall to give it another shot. This time, with newfound resolve, Wignall's illusions solidify into powerful physical spells, and the Balkar is defeated. Will is thrilled and turns to congratulate Wignall, only to find him kneeling, overwhelmed by guilt. Wignall apologizes for how he treated Will earlier, and admits that Will is worthy of respect. Will naturally shares the sentiment but keeps quiet about it to avoid boosting his own ego. But there's no time to rest. Their friends are still stranded on the 11th floor, running low on supplies. With Rusty's map and Kiki's tracking abilities, they're confident they'll find everyone soon. Meanwhile, Julius and Cyan are working together, though they're like oil and water in terms of personality. Julius, ever the practical one, is annoyed by Cyan's cocky attitude, though he can't deny that Cyan's magical abilities have grown since Will's victory over him. Cyan has even developed a heat-sensing spell. Suddenly, a group of evil sentinels appears. Julius wonders if everything from the 10th floor monster to the stampede was part of a bigger plot, but Cyan cuts him off and takes charge of the situation. Edward, elsewhere, is busy evacuating students from the 8th floor. Just when things seem under control, Werkner swoops in on a dragon, delivering the news that all students except Lihana's group have made it to the 6th floor. Edward's main concern is figuring out the cause of the stampede, but Werkner reveals a secret. He planted a tracker in Kiki's magic stone, and they now have a live feed of their location. Deep within the dungeon, Colette and Lihanna are struggling. After 16 hours without rest, they're exhausted, and their supplies are running out. Lihanna blames herself for dragging everyone into danger, especially Colette. Colette, however, assures her it wasn't her fault and thanks her for holding things together. Lihanna's grateful, though she still feels guilty. Just when it seems like things can't get worse, Wignall senses 2 mages nearby. They rush ahead, only to find Scion standing in a cave filled with burning sentinel corpses. Julius pops out, claiming he helped with his clones, but Scion, ever the tough guy, plays it off. Will's relieved to see them alive, but Julius reminds him that the girls are still lost. Colette, sensing something isn't right, steps away from Lihanna to investigate a quiet area. Before she can take a step, Lihanna grabs her, sensing danger. Just then, they come face to face with a horrifying sight: Professor Bruno's severed head. Worse still, they're confronted by Headless, a monster obsessed with adding their faces to his collection. His accomplice, Mars, tells him to hurry up, but Headless is too busy gloating about his plans to unleash calamity on the world. Before Headless can strike, Will arrives, ready to fight. He counters Headless' attack, but is thrown against the dungeon wall. With no time to waste, Headless summons the evil Grand Duke, the same monster that had teleported them to this nightmare floor in the first place. The battle for survival has only just begun. Stay connected, like and subscribe for more fun recaps on one and only Endless Recaps.